Hello everyone, welcome back to Kambel Masterclass. My name is Moses Katamani. This is our second video and the second presentation, and this one is DPSC Introduction and Definition of the Concepts School Culture. And this is going to focus on what school culture is, and we'll also look at shortly the types of school culture. Now, our discussion. I will start the discussion with more or less an abstract. And the abstract is going to focus on the general concept of what we look at as culture. Now, every community of people have some unique identities and ways by which they can be identified. When we are looking at a general society or community, there are specific things that we can look at and say these are the unique identities of the community. The same thing applies to a school system. For example, in a community or a group of people, they have language, they have food they eat, they have their dances, they have their leadership system, and what have you. All these things are the things that make that society unique. And in the general context of culture, we say culture is the way a group of people live. And that within the school system too, how does the group of people within the school system live? That is what we are going to look at. And when we are looking at the culture of a society, we look at, as I said, the food they eat, music and dance, customs and traditions. We look at type of leadership they prefer, either is a king or a queen, or either is a modern way of leadership. All of them are part of what we call culture. Again, from that context, every group of people, they have belief system which the people follow, a belief system. They have behaviors that they accept, and they have the behaviors that they don't accept. And all these things are what makes the system unique from other systems or other communities. That's what I'm trying to focus on in this context, is that when we talk about a community, a group of people and their culture, the same thing applies to a school. And the unique values that makes that community, it also makes the school community unique. Some values within a community can promote and help the people develop. However, some values within the system, within the community, can make the community retrogress or be at a standstill, whilst other communities, other group of people are developing and are ahead of them. Therefore, when we talk about school culture, the term school culture generally refers to 1. Beliefs of the people, perception that the general public, the community or group of people have about the school, the relationship amongst the pupils and students, the relationship among the teachers, the management and the top hierarchy, everyone. The same thing, that relationship from the top to bottom, we talk about that relationship as part of the school's culture. Another thing that you look at within the school culture as part of the definition is the attitude of the people within the school community. The laws, the written or unwritten rules that govern the school, all this makes the school unique. That is what we refer to as the culture of the school. That all these influence every aspect of how a school functions. The beliefs, perceptions, relationships, attitude, the rules, whether written or unwritten, all of them affect the school and influence how people look at the school and how the school system functions. So this is what we refer to as school culture. Again, the term also includes more concrete issues such as physical and emotional safety of pupils and students, the orderliness of the school system, or how orderly the school is. That is also part of culture, the school culture. Then we also look at how the school the community in which the school is, how the community looks at the school. They all form part of the school culture. Or we can also say the degree to which a school embraces and celebrates linguistic and cultural diversities. Therefore, when we are talking about school culture, we can also relate the school culture to the social culture of the environment, or yes, the social culture of the community relating to the school system. I must say that the school system is an integral part of a community. And when we talk about community, for example, when you go to a village setting, how the school is structured, also you can look at features of the culture of the community in the school. If there are diversities, different groups of people, let's say ethnic groups of racial division, all of them you can see part of it in the school system. So all these things form what we refer to as school culture. So I will say that, like the larger social culture, a school culture results from both conscious and unconscious perspectives, values, interactions, and practices which are shaped by a school's particular institutional history. When you go into a community, every community has its own history. The same thing applies to a school system, whether it is a public school or it is a private school. There is a history behind every school system. In this context, I will say that when you go to a missionary school, that missionary school is guided by values. When you go to a public school, it is guided by the general values of the state or the country, and also specifically within the community. Another thing I want us to understand is that for every school, even though the policies and programs are made from the top, if it's a public school, However, when you go to a school, every school will be unique. It will be unique in a way that the cultural setting of the community affects the school. And especially if you are in a public school within a village setting or a community, you can't do without the values of the larger community in which the school is. The same thing when you come to a public school, a private school, you realize that the private school owner has some values that you want to instill in the pupils and students before they focus on their aspiration, which is their educational aspiration and dreams. You can go to a school, and that school, when you go, there's a particular way the pupils will greet you. When you go to another school, there's a different way they will greet you. All of them are because of the background, the historical background of that school. If I want to give an example about Ghana, in Ghana now most of the schools are under government. The public schools are in two sections. Those that were owned by missionaries and they were handed over to government, but still some of the religious groups have some influence on those institutions. In the private school owners, because of their convictions and what they want to do within the school system to raise the pupils, they have a history. So you realize that as the larger community has its own history, every school has its own history. Now, moving forward, all these things I'm talking about, they influence the teaching and learning process, the outlook, and how people perceive the school. All of them are part of what we are calling school culture. So, in other words, every school will have their way of dressing. In Africa, when you go to many schools, you see that they have uniforms. And every uniform, there is a reason why they are wearing a particular uniform. When you go to public school or private school, all of them have their differences. Now, how the pupils speak in school, and there is that culture, all of them influence the system. So the school system must have a way it must be in order to get the right results. And as I said, the relationship amongst those within the school community must reflect a particular way which will inure to the benefit of the pupils and students and for their aspirations to be achieved. Therefore, I will say that within every school system, there must be a way of life, a culture, both within the general compound or confine of the school and also in the classroom. As the general school system must have culture, the school in every classroom, there must be a unique culture which they derive from the general school system. So therefore, if we are talking about school culture, this is the context from which we are looking at it from. And before I continue, if you see the schools in Ghana and how they are structured, they are different from how they are structured in Nigeria. The same thing when you go to Kenya, the school system is different from how it is in Nigeria, Ghana, the same thing in South Africa and all other countries of Africa. So, but there is something that we need to note about the school culture. That is, what will bring all the pupils and students together with all other staff, that's the teaching and non-teaching staff. or to bring them together and make the system work, that becomes a culture. If that is not there may be a challenge. Therefore, that is why when we are looking at school culture, in general term, we say whether the culture is positive or the culture is negative. So in a school system, you can have positive school culture and also a negative school culture. When I refer back to the general community, within the general community, we can say that there are things that people do within the community people appreciate. People say that is a good value, that is a good way of life. However, when people do things that do not conform with the culture or the norms of the community, then we call those ones social vices. So when social vices are more within a school system and with the characteristics that we are going to look at, then you say that school have a negative school culture, or in other words, a toxic school culture. However, if everything is planned and there's cohesion, understanding of the system, and the system is working towards achieving the purpose of the school system, that is to be able to empower the pupils and students to learn to achieve their academic goals and aspirations, then we say that system is a positive school culture. That in general terms, school culture can be divided into basic two forms: positive school culture or negative school culture. And many researchers agree that for a positive school culture, for a system to work, there must be positive school culture. In addition, many educational organizations have produced detailed descriptions of this positive or a negative school culture. And what I'm trying to discuss with my learners or my participants is that there are different materials that you can refer to, and when you are talking about positive or negative school culture. And what I'm trying to do, I'm just trying to get you aware of it and also relate to some of the experiences that I have gone through within the time of my educational work, and also to bring you into context about how you need to support the system for the system to work. Therefore, in this presentation, I look at the introduction, and in the introduction, I emphasize that school culture is just like a community. In a community, there are some things that you look at to see that these are the unique ways that community lives. The same thing applies to the school system. And that I emphasize that within the school system, there should be beliefs, perceptions that people have about the school. There must be some relationships, attitudes, written and unwritten rules which make the system, which define the culture of the school. And that in a school culture, it can basically be either positive or negative. Like in the general community, where you see that there are what we identify as social vices. And if these social vices are so much within a school system, then it becomes a toxic school system or a negative school system. I hope you follow this discussion and you understand that in a school system, there are values, there are attitudes, there are perceptions that people will have about the school. There should be some relationships which will make it a positive system or a negative school system. I hope everyone who follow this training as a teacher, you will desire that your system should be positive. You should have positive school culture which will guide both teachers and students or all workers within the school system for the school system to work effectively for the right results to be gained. I hope you continue to follow this discussion, and our next discussion is going to be characteristics of positive school culture. Characteristics of positive school culture. I hope you will follow this discussion, because either as a school teacher, as a lay teacher, or as a school manager, this discussion, this course will help you to effectively manage the system and put in place a high standard for the development and progress of your school. Thank you. I hope you continue and follow the next lesson, which is on characteristics of positive school culture. Thank you so much.